Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your boy, Nolan Hawkeye Anthony here, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic week wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are in the middle of the 2021-2022 football season. I hope you guys like this hat. I did kind of mess it up a little bit by folding the bill unevenly, but it still looks good. The problem I have with hats is that sometimes you have a head like I have where a certain size is too big or it's too tight. But overall, this looks good. Either way, I got a jam-packed show for y'all today. I am going to be previewing and doing an overview of this upcoming Iowa men's basketball season. In other words, the 2021-2022 Iowa basketball season. And this is going to be fun for a lot of reasons. But number one, for me, the most fun aspect for me is I really don't have a preference between football and basketball. But if I'm being honest, I was much better at basketball. You guys know I played Division I water polo, but the sport I grew up loving the most was definitely basketball, and I had Division II offers in basketball as well. But also outside of it from myself, the reason why this is interesting is because the Iowa men's basketball team has been doing very solid stuff the last 3 years. Had COVID not happened, Iowa would have made the NCAA tournament last year for the third consecutive time. And we are kind of in unprecedented territory with Fran McCaffrey, as Iowa just had 2 players drafted in the NBA draft. So Iowa is looking to rebuild, looking to have other guys step up. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we will be taking a look at. But before we do any of that, I really hope you guys consider hitting that subscribe button. It really means a lot when you guys do that. This channel has been up and going for 4.5, 5 months. And we are so close to getting over the 1,000 subscriber mark. I told you guys that in order for a channel to get monetized, you need to have 4,000 plus hours watched from you guys, the fans. Check. We've done that. And you need to have over 1,000 subscribers. And we are very, very, very close to that, but not quite. I am interested in hearing some sponsorship ideas. Preferably, I would like to help out an Iowa business, since even though I live in California, I talk about Iowa Hawkeye sports. So preferably, I would want to help out an Iowa business. And last but not least, if you want to support the show, I have a PayPal link in the description, which you guys will be able to find. And be sure to check in every Saturday for the pregame and the postgame show right here on the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And without further ado, let's get into this. I do want to show you guys this, the team photo. So we see some new faces, which I will be showing you guys, as well as obviously the departures. And we will be going into that. We'll be looking at the schedule, all of that fun stuff, and really getting into it. I do want to make a side point before we get into this. I do this because I love doing it. All the other stuff is kind of secondary, but the more that you guys do help me out, the more I can do as far as content. I mean, I have a lot of ideas in mind. It's, coming up with much more intimate, in-depth, higher graphic type content, graphics, that is, with that you guys can see more clear, with a storyline and all that fun stuff. So that is definitely fun. Here, back to this, guys. Here is a look at the basketball team. It's incredible that it's already been 10 plus seasons that Fran McCaffrey has been at the helm. Kirk Spurraw has been here a long time, obvious, as well as Sherman Dillard right here. The only guy who is gone from the beginning is Andrew Francis, and Billy Taylor, who I like a lot, is the coach that took over for Andrew Francis. But there's also some new faces on the roster after a few guys have left, and we will definitely be taking a look at that. So here we go, guys. Here we go. Here is the Iowa roster from the 2021 season, and Iowa's lost a lot, guys. To begin with, they have lost a 4-year starting power forward / center. I would say more of a center for Iowa in Luka Garza, the all-time leading scorer in Iowa history. Just a phenomenal talent in Luka Garza. Great teammate, great person. Really hope him the best in the NBA. And they, more importantly, they lose a leader. They lose a guy who knows how to win. And that to me is probably the biggest loss when you lose a guy like this is you lose that leadership, that ability to go to him in tight spots and say, and just kind of feel confident that he will be able to get you out. I remember in college, we had a few guys like that who went on to play in the Olympics, and it is such a relief to have a guy like that who is just crazy talented, but also, again, just a leader. So obviously Iowa loses Luka Garza. And I will tell you guys who I think the biggest loss is out of the, and all of them are losses, don't get me wrong, but I will let you guys know who I think is the biggest loss for the Hawkeyes. Iowa loses Joe Wieskamp. He left a year early, and he really didn't have a choice, guys. I mean, he did so phenomenally well in the pre-draft that he needed to go. And his draft stock would have only been higher had he come back and averaged 20 plus points en route to a Big Ten title and all of that. Joe Wieskamp made the right decision. It's funny. You always hear people who say that, well, his draft stock would never be higher. They said that when it was Geno Stone and things like that. But in this case, it would have been really difficult for Joe Wieskamp to have propelled his draft stock any higher than it was. Now, what does Iowa lose when they lose Joe Wieskamp? In my opinion, it's the obvious. They lose a shooter. They lose size. He was 6'6", 6'7". They lose leadership. They lose his kind of stoic personality, his ability to win. But in my opinion, what they lose, his rebounding ability. But in my opinion, the biggest loss from Joe Wieskamp is not only all the above, those are big things, but it is his ability to defend. We all know that Iowa hoops, and it's kind of weird. Early on in Fran McCaffrey's tenure, Iowa was a great defensive team. Maybe not great, but definitely good. One of the top, definitely in the top half of the Big Ten. And I will show you guys the kenpom rankings to show you guys where the defense ranked last year. But recently, especially the last 3 years, Iowa has been mediocre to average. And Joe Wieskamp was easily one of the premier defenders for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and they lose that. It is gone. So they lose his length, his ability to score, all of that. But in my opinion, the biggest issue or the biggest loss losing Joe Wieskamp is his ability to defend. Iowa also lost Jack Nunge, and that to me was a surprise because, I had said for a long time that Jack Nunge was going to go, he was eventually going to fill the role of Luka Garza, and he was going to become one of Iowa's best players. And he just really couldn't, he got injured all the time for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he just couldn't really get any momentum moving forward. And I can only imagine how frustrating that is. I remember we had a guy like that on my college water polo team, and it's a lonely existence to be injured the way Jack Nunge was. But with Luka Garza going pro, it seemed like Jack Nunge was the heir apparent at the front court position, in a front court role. And he decided to take his talents elsewhere. So Iowa lost Jack Nunge, and that definitely was a bummer. Probably the most surprising loss was CJ Frederick. CJ obviously was an excellent defender. I've had a few conversations with his uncle. He seems like a good guy. And CJ was one of my favorite players, just a pure scorer, one of the smoothest jumpers I've ever seen in my entire life. He wasn't crazy athletic, but he made up for it with how hard he played and how well of a defender he was. I was always hoping that he would evolve his game with a little bit more mid-range, a little bit more off the dribble skill. But nonetheless, this was a big loss, as he was a starter for the Iowa Hawkeyes for 2 years, giving them key minutes. And had he come back to Iowa, he would have been probably the go-to guy, either him or Keegan Murray. Definitely CJ would have been in the top 3, in my opinion, in the top 2 as far as the go-to player for the Iowa Hawkeyes. He would have been, we look at previous Iowa teams, when Jared Utoff left, it was Peter Jock. Before that, when Aaron White left, it was Jared Utoff. Now that Joe Wieskamp and Luka Garza was gone or left, CJ Frederick was primed to step into that role. However, at the time, I don't think anybody could have, especially CJ, could have foreseen that Joe was going to leave, because, he had no idea that Joe was going to have such a spectacular pre-draft process. So there was a lot of unknowns. Either way, CJ Frederick has moved on to Kentucky, and that is that. All right, guys, now let's look at some of the additions that Iowa will be welcoming to this Iowa Hawkeye team. I will not be looking over the walk-ons just to condense this video and things like that. But I guess I can. I'm not sure if Michael Bear is back. He's Nicholas Bear's brother. I do think Austin Ash is back. He's on scholarship. So he is back. And I think that is it. All right, let's look at the new additions to this Iowa Hawkeye team. Additions. Well, here we go, guys. It's pretty straightforward. Iowa, these are the incoming freshman recruits for this Iowa men's basketball team. Iowa won a pretty good recruiting battle in keeping Peyton Sandfort, 6'8" small forward, home. Now, he was not one of the, he wasn't on Joe Wieskamp's level or Patrick McCaffrey's level or anything like that, as far as how highly recruited he was. But if you see here, I mean, he was a top 150 player, according to 247 Sports. And he had some pretty big offers. He had an offer from Minnesota, Stanford, I think a few others. Let's see here, Utah. So he had some pretty good offers, some pretty good offers, if you ask me. And now the surprise here would be Riley Mulvey. Riley was actually classified in the 2022 recruiting class, but reclassified after Jack Nunge moved on, and Iowa had an overwhelming need to have a big guy. get enrolled into their school, and fast. This, it worked out for both parties. Riley would be able to start his career early, start developing early as a player. It would help Iowa, as Iowa needs some depth in the front court, and will definitely need some minutes from this big fella out of New York. Fran McCaffery's been doing an excellent job recruiting on the East Coast as of late. And as you guys can see here, he was ranked as a high 3-star. His ranking is not perfectly accurate because his ranking here reflects the ranking of a guy who is actually playing up a year. This is not the ranking of a guy in the 2022 recruiting class. This is the ranking of a guy who reclassified and is playing up. He's playing with older individuals. But this kid also had an extensive offer sheet. He had offers from Penn State, Siena, Fran McCaffery's old stopping ground, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. He had some really, really strong offers. And so that was an excellent grab or get by the Iowa Hawkeyes. Here's some other cool pictures, I guess. Peyton Sandfort checks in at 6'8", 215 pounds. And by the way, all the reports from camp are positive regarding Peyton Sandfort. He's ready to go, and expect him to get strong minutes this season. Will he get as many minutes as Joe Wieskamp did when he was a freshman, or CJ Frederick CJ Frederick redshirted, but is he going to get as many minutes as Keegan Murray did last year? I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I would say Peyton Sandfort is going to have a similar role actually to what Keegan Murray was last year, but just more towards his game, which is, he's a shooter and he will instantly be one of the best shooters that the Hawkeyes have now that he is on the Iowa roster. So he will be coming off the bench like Keegan Murray did. He won't get minutes like Joe Wieskamp did in his freshman year or anything like that, but he will get minutes nonetheless. And time will tell how big of a role Peyton Sandfort is able to carve out this upcoming season. As for Riley Mulvey, I think it really depends on the new addition, the transfer that I will be talking about here momentarily, as well as Josh Agundale, the development rather of Josh Agundale. If Agundale is not ready to go, and I guess you could consider Agundale an addition as well, since he did not play last year. But if Agundale is not ready to go, Fran McCaffery will have no choice but to look towards Riley Mulvey. But I'll say this right now, my expectation for Riley Mulvey, and what your expectation should be, is limited action, primarily used in short spurts to add some ability on the defensive end, and maybe some putback type stuff, some pick and roll type stuff on the offensive end. But Mulvey will only be coming in on spot duty and to help the Hawkeyes out defensively. Any more than that will be I really don't expect that. All right. Last but certainly not least, Filip Rebraca, the Serbian, 6'9". I actually thought he was 6'7". Now that I know he is 6'9", 230 pounds, I'm actually quite relieved. When we found out about his transfer, I thought he was only 6'7", and I kept wondering to myself, how is he going to be able to bang in the Big Ten with NBA level talent that is 6'10", 6'11", and 7 feet tall? But the fact that he's 6'9" is definitely a good sign. Here's Filip Rebraca's stats. He has a career average of 16.8 points per game. And the school he went to previously was North Dakota. This was an excellent get for the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's obvious he can score, which that is probably the biggest question mark about this Iowa team. How are they going to replace the scoring of Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp? Because Luka Garza is the all-time leading scorer in Iowa history. How are they going to replace that type of production? And they took a giant step forward, going out and getting a guy like Filip Rebraca, who it's obvious he can not only score in general, but he can score at the Division I level. That is definitely good news. Let's see here. I'm trying to see how many points. Last year, he averaged 16.8 points per game. The year before that, he averaged 14.3, and the year before that, he averaged 8. So it's obvious that Filip Rebraca is not a one-hit wonder. He can score, as he's shown that over a couple of seasons. This is definitely a big deal for Iowa. And in my opinion, Filip Rebraca is probably the most talented, most productive transfer that Fran McCaffrey has received in his tenure. So next, let's take a look at the kenpom ratings and see kind of where Iowa was last year and where they see Iowa this year. And if, the first thing that I noticed, let's look at this. Michigan is number one. Let's count how many teams are in front of Iowa. Michigan 1, Illinois 2, Purdue 3, Ohio State 4, Maryland 5, Michigan State 6. So kenpom sees Iowa as the 7th best team in the Big Ten. And I got to say, that's kind of where I see it as well. I see Iowa having a potential of climbing and being one of the top 5 teams in the Big Ten. But there's also a potential for them to kind of revert back a little bit after losing guys like Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp. And if we're being honest, guys, this is an excellent test to see just how far Fran McCaffrey has been able to improve this Iowa program. The biggest testament to a program is being able to lose guys like Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp and still come back the next year with an NCAA tournament caliber team. So they see Iowa as the as the 10th best offense and as the 58th best adjusted defense. And I got to say, if Iowa ends up having a top 60 defense in the country, I'll be ecstatic with that. I really will. Let's go back at the 21 stats here. Iowa was the 7th ranked team with kenpom. Obviously, kenpom is not perfect, but in my experience, it's been pretty accurate. Iowa went 22-9 last year. They had the 3rd best offense in the country, and they had the 75th best defense. And the biggest problem last year with Iowa's defense was just how inconsistent they were. During stretches, they were solid. They were exactly what they needed to be, which is just to be solid. That's it. Because the offense was so good that that's all they really needed. The offense would win them the game pretty convincingly. But at times, and we saw this against Oregon, Iowa just was not up to the task. So we will see with this Iowa team just how good their defense can be. It is, in my opinion, good to see that kenpom has them as the 58th best defense going into next season. And I got to say, that's accurate. I read an article where a big question mark about this Iowa team would be their defense, because they lose Joe Wieskamp, who was a good defender, CJ Frederick, who was a decent defender, and Luka Garza, who could hold his own. But I look at this Iowa team with guys like Joe Toussaint, Keegan Murray, Chris Murray, Philip Rebraca, Tony Perkins, and I see Aaron Eulis, and I see an opportunity for this Iowa team to be very similar to the Iowa teams at the beginning of the Fran McCaffrey era when it comes to defending the basketball. This current Iowa roster has the athletic makeup to definitely be solid on that end. All right, let's take a look at the Iowa men's basketball schedule this upcoming season. Before we kind of get into the storylines and things that will determine this Iowa basketball season. And one of the things that is interesting to me with the schedule is, or just kind of obvious, is last year's schedule was much more difficult. That's not to say that this schedule is easy, because it's not. And this Iowa schedule doesn't appear to have an in-season tournament. Now, they might, I'm not sure, but it does not seem that they do. Let's read some of this here by Hawk Central. The Hawkeyes have been assigned a demanding start and finish to the 20-game league schedule, as was released Wednesday on the Big Ten Network. They'll open Big Ten play December 3rd at Purdue, which will almost certainly be a top 10 preseason team. Plus, Iowa's history in Mackey Arena is notoriously difficult, to say the least, considering its losses of 104-68, 86-70, and 89-67 in the last 3 trips there. If you're an optimistic Hawkeye fan, there could be a possibility of attending that Friday night game in West Lafayette, Indiana, and swinging over to the nearby Indianapolis area for a very important Hawkeye football game, the Big Ten Championship, the next evening. Iowa's next 3 Big Ten contests are against Illinois, Maryland, and Wisconsin. A brutal start for Fran McCaffrey, BTN's Robbie Hummel said during the broadcast. The Hawkeyes closed the Big Ten season with a final week stretch against 2 number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament a year ago, at Michigan on March 3rd and at Illinois on March 6th. In my opinion, Illinois is kind of in a similar situation, as Illinois has a guy who decided to leave and then come back in Kofi Cockburn coming back, but they lose a very, very talented guy in Ayu Dosunmu, kind of like Iowa with Luka Garza. The Big Ten, the Big Ten is never easy. Wednesday's schedule reveal was a reminder of that. Some of the other highlights from Iowa's full 31-game schedule unveiled Wednesday. Jordan Bohannon's 6th and final Iowa State basketball game caps a crazy 11-day stretch. From November 29th through December 9th, the Hawkeyes have 3 challenging road games: Virginia, Purdue, and Iowa State, sandwiched around the December 6th home date versus Illinois. On December 9th, Cyclone students will be lined up plenty early at Hilton Coliseum to show their feelings about the Hawkeyes' pot-stirring 24-year-old guard. I will say this, okay, regarding Jordan Bohannon. The offseason incident, I'm just going to be honest, he will definitely get a lot of pushback from the Iowa State fans. And that's all I'll say about that. That's all that, so it's going to be a hostile environment for him. I'll just say that. But it always is. And he's used to playing in front of crowds like that. So he should be okay. As for him coming back to this Iowa team, at first, I was not in favor of it. I really thought that at times Iowa, the growth of last year's Iowa's team was impeded by guys like Jordan Bohannon, when Fran McCaffrey should have looked to guys like Joe Toussaint, Aaron Eulis, Tony Perkins, or whomever in order to help the Iowa team reach their potential. However, with CJ Frederick leaving and Jack Nungy leaving, not only do you lose talented guys, but you lose shooting. And Iowa will need to be able to shoot the ball this year if they're going to be able to do anything within the Big Ten. And according to reports, Jordan Bohannon will be playing off the ball. Joe Toussaint will be the point guard who is given the reins. So it will be interesting to see a shooting guard style Jordan Bohannon. It will also be interesting to see a Jordan Bohannon who is not hampered by an offseason riddled with injury like he was last year. He was healthy last year, but he had also come off an injury. And last but not least, for the most part, this will be a season where Jordan kind of has nothing to lose. He will be able to play much more free. He won't have to play the point guard position. This is his last season when he thought last year was his last season. So this is kind of one of those, I get to do it. Let's have some fun and let's see what we can do type situations. And I think that that can be positive. For both Iowa and for Jordan Bohannon. Now, from what I have been able to observe, the one thing I will say is that Jordan Bohannon, unfortunately, is not phenomenal off the ball. Iowa has tried to put him in the shooting guard role in the past, and Jordan has not done well with it. Now, will it be different with an entire offseason to train and figure out how to play the two-guard role? We'll see. So, but either way, Iowa has leadership, a veteran, a guy who can shoot, a guy who can handle the rock coming back, which I think overall, considering what they lost, is positive. And I don't think that Fran will as relentlessly go to Jordan Bohannon as he has in the past with this new talent coming up in the wings. Iowa can look forward to a February stretch that includes 15 days between road games. A 3-game homestand includes Nebraska on February 13th, Michigan on February 17th, and Michigan State on February 22nd. Some tough opponents, but at least no flights for 2 weeks. For those that wanted more Iowa-Illinois regular season matchups last season, you get them now. Exactly 3 months between games, but there's 2 of them. December 6th in Iowa City and March 6th in Champaign. Here's guessing the Ayu Dosunmu versus Luka rhetoric will continue, even though both are now employed by NBA franchises. This was already known, but Iowa will not make road trips to Indiana, Michigan State, or Northwestern. That's pretty good, I would say. If Iowa doesn't start the regular season 6-0, something went terribly wrong. The Hawkeyes' first 6 opponents are teams with kenpom ratings of 247, 203, 330, 354, 274, and 245. Considering the 11-day stretch that follows, that might be the worst thing for Fran McCaffery's relatively young team. The other 2 home non-conference dates aren't any more challenging, with number 336 Southeastern Louisiana and number 290 Western Illinois. All right. And the Big Ten tournament will be held March 9th to the 13th. Here is the schedule right here. And, like I said, it doesn't look as intimidating as last year's season seemed. And I'm okay with that. This Iowa will be able to pick up quality wins in the Big Ten. And if they beat Iowa State and Virginia, they'll have 1 or 2 quality wins right there. So they'll have enough opportunities as it is. Here is some more. Overall, I don't really have any more thoughts than that, guys, on the schedule. For me, I more have thoughts on just the Iowa roster and what they can possibly do. All right, let's get into the Iowa roster and some storylines as we wrap up here. So here we go, guys. My analysis of this upcoming basketball season. I think a large part or a large portion of the possible success will be determined on a few things. Number one, how good is Philip Rebraca and Keegan Murray? How good are they? Will they pick up a large portion of what Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp left behind, both defensively and offensively? I think a large portion of this season's success will be on their backs. Just like most Iowa seasons are. Iowa usually has one key guy. If you look back at Fran McCaffrey's teams, you've had Aaron White, who led those teams. You had Jared Utoff, who led his team. You have Peter Jock. Then you had Tyler Cook. Then you had Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp. So, and it's no different now, guys. That's how it's going to be. How much development, how much more improved is Keegan Murray, and how good is Philip Rebraca? I have looked at some of Philip Rebraca's film, but it's kind of hard to see how good he really is with the level of competition he's played against. And they're just highlights, what I have been able to see. But his stats are really, really good. If Philip Rebraca averages 14 to 16 points per game this season, Iowa will be in excellent shape. The other thing is, how much has the other players for this Iowa team improved? Where's Joe Toussaint in his journey? Has he improved shooting the basketball? We know what he is defensively. Has he improved in his sometimes turnover happy mindset? Will he turn the ball over less? What does Chris Murray, Keegan Murray's brother, look like? Will he be close to what Keegan Murray was last year? Will this Iowa team be what we have seen in the past is with shooting the three-point shot? Usually Iowa is a good three-point shooting team. With Jordan Bohannon back, will they be a good three-point shooting team again with the addition of Philip Rebraca and Peyton Sandfort? Will that continue? And the last thing that I think will determine this Iowa season is the defense. Where will this Iowa team be defensively? Will they be largely ineffective with the youth that they have? Will they not utilize the athleticism that they have and the strategical lineups that they can put against other teams, kind of playing small ball or things like that? So if this Iowa team, as I said to you guys earlier in this video, if this Iowa team can be a top 60, top 55 defensive team, I think this team will be in excellent shape, because we all know that Iowa will have, at the very least, a top 25 offense. Now, what will the starting lineup be? And I will share that with you guys right now. I have my starting lineup, and I have the starting lineup that Fran McCaffrey will give you guys. All right, guys, who would your boy Nolan Hawkeye Anthony start if I was the head coach of the Iowa men's basketball team? Well, there's a lot of lineups that I can see being successful, but what I would probably do, and this is one difference between me and I guarantee what Fran will do, I would have a guy like Jordan Bohannon and Connor McCaffrey come off the bench, because you need firepower coming off the bench. Just because Jordan doesn't start or Connor McCaffrey doesn't start doesn't mean that they cannot play 20 to 30 minutes a night. I probably would have them come in with the second unit. Now, will that be what Fran McCaffrey does? I doubt it. And I will tell you guys what I think Fran McCaffrey's starting lineup will be. But here is mine. I would have Joe Toussaint as the point guard. I would have Tony Perkins as the shooting guard. Now, largely, that is me hoping that Tony Perkins has improved his ability to shoot the ball. Okay. And if he hasn't, then he can't be a starter because Iowa's starting lineup is going to need someone who can stretch the floor. You need someone who can stretch the floor. Either way, Joe Toussaint, Tony Perkins, I would have Patrick McCaffrey, Keegan Murray, and Philip Rebraca. That would be my starting five with Keegan Murray and Patrick McCaffrey flip-flopping at the 3 and the 4. Now, the starting lineup that I see Fran McCaffrey having, the only difference between my starting lineup would be that of Jordan Bohannon. I think he will start Jordan Bohannon at the 2, and Fran McCaffrey's starting lineup will be Joe Toussaint, Jordan Bohannon, Keegan Murray. I would say and the rest is the same. Patrick McCaffrey and Philip Rebraca. I could also see him starting Connor McCaffrey in place of maybe Patrick, definitely not Keegan, and even in place of Philip Rebraca. But looking at his comments that he made, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, it seems as though Connor McCaffrey will be coming off the bench, and I think that is the right move. I don't think there is room for him to start this year because, quite frankly, the other guys are better. Philip Rebraca is better. Keegan Murray is better. And his own brother, Patrick McCaffrey, is better. And if it's a toss-up between Jordan Bohannon and Connor McCaffrey, I'm probably going with Jordan Bohannon because you need to be able to space the floor. Now, as for my prediction, drum roll, please. No, I'm joking, guys. No drum roll. I think Iowa goes 20-11 this season. I think they're 9 games over 500, and I think they will have 20 regular season wins. 11 is still a good amount of losses. I don't know which ones it'll be. Plus, if I went through it, this video would be too dang long. So I'm not going to do that. But I think Iowa is good enough to have 20 wins. To be honest with you, I think they're good enough to have more than that. But I can also see them having less. So I'm going to go in the middle and say that they are a 20-win team. And I do think that this Iowa team is an NCAA tournament team. I think Iowa will finish either 5th or 6th in the Big Ten. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope you guys consider hitting that subscribe button. It really means a lot when you guys do that. And at the very least, like, comment. That's why I started this. I live all the way out in California, so I like chatting with you guys, having a conversation, and all of that. If you want to support the channel, I'll put the PayPal link in the description, and be sure to check the pre and the post-game show right here on this channel. And don't forget, we are looking for some sponsors, so you can hit me up by checking my email out in the description. And without further ado, y'all, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow, and facts are feelings because feelings don't matter. Love y'all. Bye.